So, thought I'd jump on and answer a couple of questions that have come in regarding the Erbauer or airless sprayers in general, about what paint you use in them. Now, technically speaking, you could use an oil-based paint, but I never do anything like that. Simple reason is it's a lot harder to clean up the oil-based paints. Obviously, you need like the thinners and that to thin it through to get it through the system. And I don't do that. I use emulsion paints. If I was going to use an oil-based paint, I'd probably use the HVLP type sprayer rather than the airless sprayer. Simple reason is because it does have a lot of filters, like this one here. I say a lot of filters, there's a couple of filters on it, and one of them's in the handle that looks a bit like this here. So I'll show you a picture of the spray gun handle and picture of the filter that's inside the handle. And obviously you've got to remember you've got to get the paint through the actual spray tip because they're different sizes. Now I use a 517, pretty much a standard size of tip. Does a great job with the emulsion paints, especially for what I use it for. When I'm working in people's houses, generally speaking, I don't use this airless sprayer. Simple reason is the rooms aren't clear enough. I end up having to move furniture and you need to get a straight pass, otherwise it just doesn't work. So don't use it as much inside houses that people are living in. If they're not living in it, or it's just something, a new build or something like that, there's nobody there, there's no carpets down, anything, furniture, nothing, spraying all day long. Well, not all day long because it doesn't take that long. But one of the other questions I was asked is, can you use masonry paint? Now, the airless sprayer is great for masonry painting. I just spilt my coffee there. I feel like I'm at the Mad Hatter's tea party with this little cup. Fits on my little flask here. That's just enough for me, is that in there, but the cup is absolutely tiny. What was I saying? Masonry paint. Right, so masonry paint is just the same stuff. It's water based. It is the same as emulsion, basically. Slightly different molecularly because it's used for outdoors, so you'll be using it on stonework, brickwork and things like that. Obviously with the right preparation as well, it will stick and hold on better. If you was to paint it with ordinary emulsion, for instance, probably won't get the same effect, probably won't last long, it'll probably end up flaking off. But masonry paints, specifically Sandtex, it's called Sandtex because they were probably one of the first brands to do a textured masonry paint. You probably see this on the outside of houses, and what that means is it's got sand inside the paint, so it's mixed in all together. Now, don't use that through your airless spray. I was mentioned earlier about your filters. You imagine like the grains of sand in the paint trying to get through those filters, and especially through the tip. If it could go through the filter into the tip, you will clog your tip, and obviously the sand won't go through the filter because that's what the filter does. It keeps all the contaminants out of the paint to help the paint flow through the airless sprayer better. Now, it is a good idea that if using any paint, emulsion, masonry paint, is to strain it using a strainer. Now, quite a lot of decorators use a pair of tights to strain the paint through. You can buy strainers now which will do the job just the same, and they will make sure that loads of bits of whatever in the paint, if there are any, because sometimes when the tubs are on the shelf, there's a little bit that dries around the lid, can end up in the paint, which will clog your airless sprayer. And the other thing is to make sure you stir it thoroughly, and this will help it flow better. Adding water, depending on the consistency of the paint as well, usually around about 10% water, maybe 20% if it's a little bit thicker, will help it flow through the sprayer better. But because you can hit the surface multiple times without letting it dry with a sprayer, you're talking 30 minutes between each coat. You don't really have to have the thickness of the paint that you would do if you was rolling it. If you was rolling it, you would have to let it dry for a couple of hours, and you know, as long as the paint's solid, because what the roller will do, it will pull the paint off, and you end up with patchy bits, especially in ceilings. Very noticeable in ceilings, you end up with patchy bits because it's not being allowed to dry properly. The airless sprayer is great for the mist coating, and now you'll be thinning your paint down by about 50 to 40% for that. So again, if you was using masonry paint and it was going on something porous, so if you weren't recoating something, for instance, then I would suggest doing the mist coat first, the same principle as you would do on new plaster. You want that paint to soak in. Now there are like stabilizing solutions and all different types of things you can put on the surface to prepare it first, but generally speaking, you still need to thin the paint down so that it will adhere to the surface it's going on. So in answer to your question, what kind of painting is most of the time just use emulsion. That's all I do. I don't use oil-based paints. Like I said, I just think it's too much hassle to clean the sprayer out with something like that, and I do think all it'd take is the paint to harden in the tubes or something one day, and that'd be it. At least if it's emulsion and it's being washed through with water, even if you do get a little bit of paint residue in your tube, it will wash out with good cleaning things. So I've done several videos on the Erbauer and how to clean it and how to prepare it and how to get it primed and everything. And again, go back and watch those. Make sure you go through the steps and make sure you follow everything that you're doing. And just remember, you've got to keep at it. If your sprayer's not spraying the paint out as well, because that's another question I keep getting, it's not spraying, then you have to go through the steps and eliminate everything. You know, I've had that happen to me. There is a little button, again, I've done videos on this, that you can press, which will release the ball bearing in the valve, which sometimes sticks. Obviously it's got water going through it. The water helps lubricate the pumps and everything inside. So you need to go back and go through the steps thoroughly, like I said. But that being said, generally you should have trouble-free spraying if you do go through the steps. It's all about preparation. As my dad used to say to me, 2/3 of your time is preparation and the rest of it is completion and doing the job. And you know, there's nothing truer word ever been said, that preparation is the foundation of any job that you do. What else can I say? But the types of paint usually tell you on the tubs if you can spray it or not. Now, generally speaking, you could probably spray any kind of emulsion. The cheaper versions, I know that Leyland, and I've had a customer buy Leyland, and I did share the video. I had a little bit of a rant about this because they weren't happy, and this is after a couple of weeks of noticing it was a little bit patchy, but it was cheap emulsion and you never get the desired effect. Now, I have used this on a job, this Leyland, at B&Q here in the UK. They occasionally do 2 tubs for £26, right? So that's 2 10-litre tubs. Now, this staircase that I did, I used about 18 litres of paint on this staircase and it still wasn't right, and that was using a roller. Now, when I used it with the sprayer in another job, but like I said, I will only use the sprayer if the house is clear, and this was a basement conversion, so I used the sprayer. The room was empty, and again I did a video on this as well, so go check out the videos. This is where some of the videos came from, is this basement conversion. And the effect that the sprayer had with that paint was a lot better than with the roller. So that was watered down as well to create the mist coats, and then I thicken it up gradually. So I keep pouring the paint that I've not thinned down back into the tub that I have thinned. So it starts thinning it down, thickening it back up, sorry. for each progressive coat, and it worked a treat with the sprayer, so that there was no issues with that. It wasn't patchy or anything, it was a nice even coat. However, if I was to use the same paint with a roller, probably not get the desired effect with it. But that being said, the more expensive paints that you buy, I don't know, you could pay up to £60–70 a tin for 5 litres, and my customer who wanted the staircase doing wouldn't pay that. She literally just waltzed back in the house and says, I'm not paying £60 for a tin of paint. I says, well, we'll just have to manage with this then, won't we? But then she wasn't happy, and then, you know, I get the blame. But I didn't buy that paint, so you can't really blame me, can you? I refuse to deal with people like that. You know, now I'm not interested at all. Last time I worked for was 7 years ago, and again I'm having another rant here, aren't I? But they just don't get it. You know, you want a Rolls Royce finish on a cheap paint like that, you're not going to get it. I mean, there's a reason why a Rolls Royce is £300,000 in it. If you want a cheaper car, go to Ford garage or Kia garage. You know, yes, you'll get a nice car out of it, but it won't be the same, will it? It won't have in diamond crusted interiors and things like that. Why? Because diamonds cost money. Paint costs money. The more you pay, the better the paint. Albeit some of them are, yeah, just pay for the money. I did say this in another video about Dulux paint. Now, they make paint for other people, so it ends up in a different can, and it works out maybe 20–30% cheaper than their own brand. So you need to spot that in places like B&Q. There are obviously more cost-effective paints out there. They're not bad. I'm not saying that they're not good. They're not bad. You can use them and they work. And again, these can go through your sprayer. So just remember that the finish on the sprayer is a lot different to the finish on a roller. I can get the desired finish with a roller, but it takes longer to achieve that with a roller. But like I said, I will not work in it with the sprayer in a person's house if they're not prepared to clear the rooms. I don't see why I should do it. I'm not a removal man, but then neither are they. So there you go. So that's my advice on paint. If you do have any more questions, leave them down in the comments below. We will get round to making some more videos of that sprayer. Maybe next time I use it. I don't know when that will be, but we will get round to making some more videos. Don't worry about that. But I'm doing other things at the moment. I'm on a decorating job at the moment, but we're using a roller for that again. And this is just literally just a refresh, because I've painted this staircase so many times over the past 3 years. It's a very tall building, is this. So basically we work from the bottom up and then work from the bottom down, just because of the way it had to be done. It's just working around the customer basically. But they're a good payer, so you know, I don't mind doing that. They don't complain much if